For years, Apple has seemed totally untouchable, hasn't it? The most valuable company in the world, the one that basically defined our digital lives. But now, with this new age of artificial intelligence dawning, the very foundations of that empire are being questioned.
So is it possible? Could the world's most valuable company be repeating BlackBerry's biggest mistake? And look, this isn't just about Siri being a little behind or some missing features. We're talking about a massive tectonic shift in technology. The real question is, could this trillion-dollar giant be on the wrong side of history?
And that really is the trillion-dollar question. I mean, think about it. There was a time when Apple didn't just follow the future, right? They were the future. Every single product launch felt like a genuine revolution. And that was absolutely the case for their first big move into AI.
Remember when Siri came out back in 2011? It was pure magic. It felt like science fiction, a whole 4 years ahead of anyone else. It promised this amazing future where you could just talk to your technology. But fast forward to now, you see what other companies are doing with generative AI, and suddenly Siri feels, well, stuck in the past. And that gap, it's where these really uncomfortable comparisons start to pop up. And wow, the parallel is pretty striking. Back when touchscreens were the next big thing, what did BlackBerry do? They doubled down on what they knew best, privacy and security. It was the safe bet. And today, as this AI revolution just tears up the rulebook, Apple seems to be clinging to its core values: privacy, polish, and perfection. But here's the critical question. Are those values a fortress protecting them, or are they a cage holding them back?
All right, let's talk about the economics of AI. Because to really get what Apple's up against, you have to look past the cool features and dig into how this stuff actually works. This isn't really a story about being late to the party. It's a story about whether Apple can even afford the price of admission to this new era.
Okay, so here's the key concept: tokens. Every single time you ask an AI a question, there's a little transaction happening behind the scenes, and the currency for that transaction is called a token. Think of it as the cost for the AI to think and give you an answer. Every query burns tokens, and every token has a price tag. And this is exactly where Apple's biggest strength, its incredible scale, suddenly becomes a terrifying liability.
So let's start with that scale. Right now, there are over 2.3 billion active Apple devices out there in the world. That number is it's mind-boggling. And for years, that massive user base has been the bedrock of Apple's power.
Now, let's do some quick and honestly pretty conservative math. Let's say just 1 billion of those users, not even half of them, make only 12 simple AI requests a day. That adds up to 12 billion queries every single day, and each one has to be processed and paid for. So what if Apple had to outsource that? What if they had to pay a company like OpenAI to handle all those requests? Well, the daily bill would come out to a staggering $180 million. That's per day. And if you zoom out to a full year, that number just explodes. We're talking $65 billion. Let's really put that into perspective.
That's $65 billion. That would eat up almost 70% of Apple's entire annual net profit. I mean, that's not just a big expense, it's financially catastrophic. Suddenly you realize, at this scale, AI isn't just another feature, it's a potential existential threat to their whole business model.
You know, the head of product at OpenAI put it perfectly. He said, with traditional software, the more users you get, your profits just keep compounding. But with AI, you have a compounding cost. Every new user just adds to the bill. Your greatest strength, scale, becomes your enemy.
So this brings up a really important question. Why aren't we talking about this for companies like Google or Microsoft? Why don't they face the same crazy economic threat? Well, the answer comes down to the difference between owning the entire factory and just renting the machines inside it. To actually deliver an AI service, you need a whole collection of technologies working together. People in the industry call this the AI stack. It's the whole shebang: the AI model itself, the insane computing power to run it, all the data to train it, and the platform that actually gets it to you. And when you look at who owns what in this stack, the competitive landscape gets crystal clear. Apple? They absolutely own the platform layer, iOS, macOS. That's huge. But then you look at Google. They have the platform, a literal ocean of data from search and YouTube, their own custom chips and data centers, and their own world-class AI models. They own every single layer.
So what does this mean? It means Google owns the entire factory, from the raw materials to the delivery truck. Having that vertical integration means they can control costs and innovate at a speed that's impossible for others to match. And in this new world, Apple, for all its power, runs the risk of becoming just the beautifully polished dumb glass that displays an intelligence built and owned by somebody else.
So, given this massive economic and strategic problem, what's Apple's plan? How do they fight back? Well, they've come up with a very specific, and I'd say defensive strategy that they're calling Apple Intelligence.
Their plan is actually a pretty clever two-layer defense. Layer 1 is all about on-device AI. So for simple, private stuff like summarizing a text, all of that thinking happens right there on your iPhone. Your personal data never leaves. Then, for the slightly heavier lifting, there's Layer 2, Apple's own private cloud compute, using their own servers. And here's the crucial part. Only the most complex requests, the ones that really need a huge world-class AI model, get sent out to a partner like OpenAI. By keeping the vast majority of queries in-house, Apple thinks it can cut that external AI bill by more than 90%. And just like that, they neatly sidestep that $65 billion problem. So, okay, this strategy is a really smart fix for the immediate economic problem. But it also opens up a much, much deeper, almost existential question. And that's about where value is actually going to come from in the next decade of tech. Think about the old model. For years, Google has paid Apple billions just to be the default search engine on your iPhone. Why? Simple. It's profitable for them. Every search is a chance to show an ad and make money. But the new AI model is the complete opposite. A partner like OpenAI actually loses money with every single user chat. At scale, the economics for that kind of deal are just fundamentally broken. And this is what leads to the ultimate long-term threat. What happens if the most valuable part of your device isn't the hardware, but the intelligence inside it, this thinking layer? And what if Apple doesn't own that layer? Every time you say, "Hey Siri, ask ChatGPT," the iPhone becomes less of a powerful platform and more of just a simple gateway to someone else's intelligence. Okay, so let's wrap this all up. At the end of the day, Apple's AI problem isn't about features. It's a huge problem rooted in the brutal economics of AI at scale. Because they don't own the full AI stack, like Google, they're forced to play defense, keeping most AI private and on the device. But that defense comes with a massive risk, that the device in your hand becomes less valuable than the thinking layer it's just a portal to. And that leaves us with one last critical question to think about. Apple's entire brand is built on that seamless ecosystem. But what happens when you have a personal AI that lives above all of that? An AI that knows you better than your iPhone ever could, and works the same no matter what device you're on. So when the intelligence itself becomes the brand you're loyal to, what happens to the beautiful glass you used to hold in your hand?